I suppose every story that breaks you begins quietly. Mine began with the sound of rain tapping against the church windows and the whisper of my own breath as I tried not to cry. The world outside was gray, the kind of gray that settles deep into your bones. Inside, the air smelled of lilies and old wood, and the pew beneath me felt colder than it should have. It was my husband's funeral, or what I believed was my husband's funeral. Michael and I had been married for 34 years. He wasn't a perfect man, but he was the man I loved, the man I built a home with, the man I made coffee for every morning. And now I was sitting in a stiff black dress, staring at a closed casket, because the sheriff said the accident had been too severe for an open viewing. People kept coming up to me with soft hands and softer voices. "I'm so sorry, Linda. He was a good man. If you need anything at all." I nodded. I thanked them. I tried to smile. But my chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left only air. I kept staring at that casket, trying to imagine Michael inside it, trying to accept that our last conversation, a simple, ordinary goodbye as he left for work, had been the final one. He'd kissed the top of my head, grabbed his thermos, and said, "Back by 6, don't forget we've got bills to look at tonight." And now I was expected to believe he was gone. When the pastor stepped up to speak, the room fell quiet. My hands folded in my lap, trembling slightly. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to honor him. But grief has a way of making even breathing feel like a chore. Then, my purse buzzed. Softly, a little vibration against my leg. I ignored it. Buzz. Buzz. People were turning their heads slightly toward me, and I gave an apologetic smile, fumbling to silence my phone. But when I looked at the screen, my heart stopped. It was a message. From a number saved long ago. From a number I hadn't yet had the strength to delete. Michael. And beneath his name were 4 words. 4 words that pulled the ground out from under me. I am still alive. A pause. Another message. Trust no one. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. My husband was alive. And somehow, everyone else here might be lying to me. I don't remember much of the service after that moment. Everything blurred together, as if someone had pulled a thin curtain over the world. People kept moving around me, speaking to me, hugging me, offering their condolences, but they all sounded far away, like voices drifting underwater. I kept staring at my phone, the message glowing on the screen like a wound. I am still alive. Trust no one. My husband's name above it. The husband everyone here believed was dead. The husband I had spent the last 3 days mourning. I slipped the phone back into my purse, my hands trembling so badly that I had to hold the strap just to steady myself. I pressed my lips together so no one could see them shaking. Every part of me wanted to run outside, dial his number, scream his name, but something just held me still. Maybe it was shock, or fear, or the strange, quiet instinct that rises inside you when you realize a truth no one else knows yet. I kept my head down for the rest of the service. I avoided people's eyes. I let my sister, Helen, guide me to the car afterward, her hand warm around mine. She kept saying things like, "You were so strong in there," and "Michael would be proud of you." But my mind was somewhere else entirely. Michael. Alive. How? Why? Who did I need to stop trusting? By the time I got home, our small blue house on Birchwood Lane, with the porch swing he hung himself 20 years ago, I felt as if I'd aged 10 years in a single afternoon. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Funerals always leave behind an odd silence, the kind that sits on furniture and hangs in the air. I closed the front door and locked it, letting my back rest against it for a moment. I inhaled, slow and shaky. Then I pulled out my phone. His message was still there. Still real. Still impossible. I tried calling, of course I did. Any wife would. The call rang once, twice, then straight to voicemail. "Hi, this is Michael. Guess I missed you. Leave a message." His voice. Familiar. Warm. Alive. My knees weakened. I had to sit on the stairs just to catch my breath. "Michael," I whispered, my voice barely forming the name. "What is happening?" But the house, faithful as ever, gave me no answer. To understand why this message broke me the way it did, why it felt like someone had cracked open my rib cage and rearranged my entire life, you have to know a little about us. Michael and I weren't perfect. No couple is. We had our seasons, our quiet winters, our warm springs. We had arguments about money, little fights about chores, long talks about our future and where we saw ourselves growing old. But through everything, he was steady. He was the man who built our backyard deck by hand, plank by plank. The man who made me tea every night at 9:30, without fail. The man who knew how I liked my toast, how I liked my garden roses trimmed, how to calm me down when my anxiety spun out of control. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, he was simply good. Or so I believed. 3 mornings before the funeral, the day he died, we had breakfast together at our small wooden kitchen table, the one with a dent from when our son accidentally dropped his bike helmet on it years ago. Michael was wearing his usual steel blue jacket, the one he used for work. He had a thermos in one hand and a slice of toast in the other. "You slept well?" he asked between bites. "Not really," I said, watching him the way wives do, half fondness, half habit. "You left the lamp on again last night." He chuckled. "Sorry about that, Lynn. I need to get better about switching things off." It was such an ordinary morning. So painfully normal. If I had known it would be the last morning I would see him, or thought I would see him, I might have memorized more of it. The way he smiled, the way he reached across the table to squeeze my hand, the way he hummed under his breath while tying his boots. Instead, I walked him to the door, kissed him on the cheek, and said what I always said. "Drive safe." And he said what he always said. Always. Those were supposed to be the last words between us. Hours later, a sheriff's deputy knocked on my door, hat in hand, eyes soft, voice steady. "Ma'am, I'm very sorry." I collapsed before he even finished the sentence. And now I'm supposed to believe that same man, the one who supposedly died in a roadside crash, just texted me that he was alive? Everything inside me twisted with confusion and dread. That night, I heated up soup but never touched it. I turned on the television but didn't watch it. I walked from room to room, trying to make sense of something that didn't make any sense at all. When the sun set, I finally went upstairs to our bedroom. His clothes were still in the closet. His watch was on the nightstand. His glasses were folded neatly beside the lamp. His smell, a mix of cedar and shaving soap, still floated through the room. It felt wrong to be in there alone. It felt wrong to lie on the side of the bed he'd always warmed first. I sat by the window with my knees pulled close, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one. Our neighborhood was quiet. Neat lawns, old maples, the sound of distant dogs barking. A typical suburban street where nothing extraordinary ever happened. But something extraordinary had just torn my life apart. At 10:14 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A second message. From him. Listen very carefully. I can't talk long. My breath caught. Another bubble appeared. They think I'm dead. My fingers shook so badly I could hardly type. Who? I sent. A long pause. Then, people you trust, do not tell anyone I contacted you. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. People I trust? Who would want him gone? Who would lie to me about his death? Why would he send a message during his own funeral? I typed again, desperate, frightened. Are you safe? Where are you? What's happening? Please tell me. This time the message delivered, but minutes passed. 10 minutes? 20. No answer. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of our bed clutching his pillow like a lifeline. Around 3 a.m., a thought slipped into my mind, quiet, as gentle as a whisper. What if someone else had his phone? It was possible, wasn't it? Phones got stolen, numbers got spoofed, hackers did strange things nowadays. Maybe this was some cruel trick. Except the phrasing, the rhythm of his messages, even the way he signed his texts, short, clipped, urgent, it all felt like him. I knew my husband's voice even when it wasn't a real voice. At dawn, I opened our front door and stepped outside, trying to breathe in the cool morning air. The street looked normal. The world looked normal. People jogged. Cars passed. A neighbor waved at me with sympathy in her eyes. Nothing looked like the world of a woman whose husband might still be alive, or whose life might be in danger. I stood there for a long time, wondering what to do, wondering who to trust, wondering if everything I believed about my marriage was about to shatter. And wondering why, if Michael was really alive, he hadn't come home to me. That morning, as the sun slowly climbed above the roofs of Birchwood Lane, I stood barefoot on the front porch with my arms wrapped around myself. The wood felt cold beneath my feet, and the air carried that crisp bite you only get in early autumn. It should have woken me up, grounded me, reminded me that I was still here, still breathing. But all I felt was a strange heaviness, like I was walking through water instead of air. Michael's message, those impossible words, kept looping through my mind. I'm alive. Trust no one. It was the kind of thing you hear in movies, whispered in dramatic echoes, not something sent to a 58-year-old widow living in a quiet suburban street where the biggest scandal was usually someone letting their dog run loose. I kept trying to replay the past few days, to make sense of something senseless. The hospital call, the deputy at my door, the funeral, the tears I shed over an empty seat in the church because the casket had been closed for medical reasons. All of it suddenly felt staged, like a play put on for my benefit. And I didn't know what terrified me more, that Michael might be alive somewhere, hiding from something, or that someone wanted me to believe he wasn't. I closed my eyes and hugged myself tighter. Why would Michael say that? Why would he warn me against my own sister? What did he know that I didn't? The kettle whistled, sharp and bright, snapping me out of my thoughts. I'm managing, I finally said, voice quiet. One moment at a time. Helen placed a cup of tea in front of me. Chamomile, my favorite. She slid into the chair across from mine, her eyes soft. I know I've said it before, but I'm so sorry. He was a good man. My throat tightened. Yes, I whispered. He was. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You don't have to pretend with me, Linny. I know how badly you're hurting. I looked at her fingers wrapped around mine. Warm, familiar, reassuring. Was she someone I shouldn't trust? What did my husband see or fear that made him warn me? Helen stayed another hour, fussing over the house, reorganizing my pantry, and promising to drop by again later. When she finally left, closing the door behind her with a soft click, the silence rushed in like a tidal wave. I exhaled shakily. Then my phone buzzed. My heart jumped. I grabbed it so fast it almost slipped from my hands. Another message. You need to listen very carefully. I don't know how long I can keep this line safe. My pulse hammered. I typed back with trembling fingers. Why did they tell me you died? Who can't I trust? Please, I need to understand. He replied almost instantly this time. I will explain, but not here, not like this. Please, I love you. Stay quiet. Then a final line. Don't believe anything you're being told. I covered my mouth with my hand, fighting the urge to sob aloud. What was I not supposed to believe? The accident, the police, the funeral, my own sister comforting me in my kitchen? Everything? Or was it something deeper? Something Michael had kept hidden long before any of this started. Around midday, I forced myself to do something normal. Open the back door and check the mail. I needed the fresh air. I needed to feel like a real person again instead of a ghost drifting through the house. The autumn wind was cool on my face. Leaves swirled across the lawn and little spirals of gold and rust. Across the street, Mrs. Halliday was on her knees in the garden, trimming her rose bushes with the concentration of a surgeon. She waved at me. I waved back. For one small moment, I let myself pretend everything was normal. I collected the mail from the box, a few envelopes, a magazine, a flyer for a local fundraiser. Mundane things, ordinary things. But stuck between two envelopes was something unexpected. A folded sheet of paper, slightly crumpled, with no return address. My breath caught. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it as I unfolded the note. 4 words, written in a hand I knew better than my own. Don't trust the deputy. My stomach dropped. The deputy who had told me Michael was dead. The deputy who had handed me a folded flag and apologized for my loss. The deputy who had hugged me when I collapsed. A wave of dizziness swept over me so suddenly I had to grip the doorknob. Why would Michael single him out? Why him? Why now? My hands trembled violently as I clutched the note. And then, worse, another thought crept in, unwelcome and cold. If I couldn't trust the deputy, who else did he mean? Who else was part of this? And how deep did the lie go? The hours that followed felt unreal. I kept pacing from room to room, unable to settle anywhere. My mind spiraled in circles, questions looping endlessly. Why fake his death? Why send messages instead of coming home? Why warn me? Why involve the deputy? What danger was surrounding us? By the time the sun set, my nerves were unraveling. Shadows stretched long across the living room walls. The house creaked in the cooling air, and every tiny noise made my heart lurch. I finally sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the phone in my hand. I needed answers. I needed the truth. I needed Michael. At 8:47 p.m., I sent another message. Please, I'm scared. Tell me what is happening. If you're alive, I need to see you. Minutes passed. 10 minutes. 20. Then, finally, the screen lit up. Michael. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., the place we first met. Come alone. My breath froze. The place we first met? For us, that was a small, quiet park by the river. The one with the old wooden bench near the willow tree. The one where he'd spilled coffee on my book and apologized so sweetly, I forgave him instantly. I hadn't been there in years. My fingers hovered over the screen. I should have been relieved, grateful, hopeful. But instead, all I felt was a deep, unsettling ache. Like the ground beneath me had shifted, and tomorrow was the moment I would discover whether my life would break apart or finally make sense. And somewhere deep in my chest, a whisper formed. What if meeting him wasn't safe either? Sleep did not come that night. I lay in bed with the curtains slightly open, watching the moonlight stretch across the ceiling like pale fingers reaching for something unseen. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind filled with images I did not want to explore. Michael calling my name, Michael hiding in the shadows, Michael lying in a hospital bed, lifeless, Michael whispering those impossible words through a phone that should not have rung. I kept hearing his voice in my head, not his recording, not his message, but the voice I'd known for 40 years. Gentle, steady, deep. The man who once sang to me in the kitchen while washing dishes, terribly off-key, but full of love. The man who held me when I miscarried, the man who brought me tea every morning, even when he was angry. How could this same man vanish without a goodbye and pretend to be dead? Around 2:30 in the morning, I sat up in bed and turned on the lamp. The room looked unfamiliar somehow, as if the house itself could sense something had shifted. I swung my legs over the side and put my feet on the cool floorboards. The house made a soft popping sound as the temperature dropped, old wood adjusting to the night. Normally, it comforted me. That night, it made my skin prickle. I walked down the hallway, my robe wrapped tight around me, and stopped outside Michael's old office. The door had remained closed since the day he died. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't dared. But something drew me to it now. I hesitated with my hand on the doorknob. His warning echoed in my mind. Trust no one. Did that include myself, my instincts, my memories? I turned the knob slowly. The door creaked open with a low, tired sound, and the scent of his cologne drifted out, faint but unmistakable. It hit me like a blow to the chest. The room was exactly as he had left it. Books neatly stacked on the desk, a sweater draped over the back of the chair, his reading glasses resting beside a half-finished crossword. Dust hadn't had time to settle yet. That stung more than anything else, proof of how recently he had been here, breathing the same air. I tugged harder. It opened with a small jolt. Inside was a folder, plain, manila, no label. My heart thudded painfully. I lifted it out and placed it on the desk. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were papers, photocopies of legal documents, printed emails, bank transfers I didn't recognize, photographs of men I had never seen. One photo showed a group standing in front of a warehouse. Another was of a man shaking hands with someone whose face was cut off at the edge of the frame. At the bottom of the stack was a note, handwritten in Michael's familiar, angled script. If anything happens to me, don't call the police first. Call Daniel. Tell no one else. Daniel. I stared at him, my breath frozen halfway in my chest. The shadows shifted across his face as he stepped closer, the glow from the park lamp catching the lines near his eyes. He looked older than I remembered, more tired, more worn, as though the years had not been kind to him. But there was no mistake. It was Daniel, Michael's estranged brother, the man Michael had not spoken to in nearly 2 decades, the man whose name appeared on the note I found hidden in Michael's drawer. "Daniel," I whispered, almost afraid saying his name would break the moment, or somehow call something unwanted into existence. He nodded once. "Linny." My throat tightened. For a second, grief and confusion warred inside me. I had come here expecting to see my husband, alive, breathing, defying the funeral I'd wept through. Instead, I was looking into a familiar face that carried too many old memories and too many silent questions. I felt my voice tremble. "Why are you here? Where is Michael?" Daniel hesitated, glancing around the empty park. A couple of joggers passed in the distance, their footsteps echoing softly, but no one came near the willow. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "He couldn't come." Something inside me dropped. "What do you mean he couldn't come?" I whispered sharply. "He told me to meet him here. He said—" "I know what he said." Daniel cut me off gently, raising a calming hand. "I'm the one who told him to send that message, and I'm the one who told him he couldn't come." My skin prickled, a cold shiver running down my arms. "Why?" I asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. His eyes softened with something that looked like regret. "Because it isn't safe. Not for him. Not for you." I swallowed, gripping the bench beneath me to steady myself. "Safe from what? Daniel, Michael is supposed to be dead. I had to bury an empty casket because they said his body—" "I know." His voice cracked slightly as he looked down. "Linny, I'm sorry. Truly. I never wanted you to go through that." "Then what is happening?" My voice came out thin, almost weak. "Please, someone has to tell me something. I don't understand any of this." Daniel looked up and exhaled deeply, as if bracing himself. "It started a long time ago. Long before you and Michael married. Back when we were just kids." I stared at him, confusion tightening in my chest. "What started?" He looked away for a moment, past the river, past the lamps, past the quiet homes lining the park, as if searching for a piece of the past drifting in the dark. Then he said quietly, "The thing that's chasing him." My heart lurched. "Chasing him?" I whispered. Daniel nodded. "And now you." A breeze rustled through the willow branches, their thin leaves brushing softly against each other, a quiet, eerie whisper. I felt my voice tremble. "Daniel, if this is some kind of joke—" "It's not a joke." His tone sharpened, firm but not unkind. "I wish to God it was." I pressed a hand to my chest. "Then tell me. Tell me what happened. Tell me why Michael would fake his own death. Why he'd let me think—" My voice broke. "Why he'd let me think he was gone." Daniel's face softened, and for the first time that evening, I saw something in him I had never seen before. Fear. Not fear of me, not fear of being caught, but fear of something bigger. Something he believed was watching us even now. "Michael didn't fake his death to hurt you," Daniel said softly. "He did it to protect you." "From what?" I asked again, almost pleading. "Daniel, I have been living in a nightmare. I buried a man I loved for 40 years. And now I'm supposed to believe? He held up the folded sheet of paper I'd found earlier. My breath caught. You checked the office, he said quietly. Good. I hoped you would. How did you? That folder was meant for you. Michael left instructions. If anything happened to him, anything at all, you were to find it, and then you were to find me. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed with the weight of it all. Then why didn't he come? I whispered. If he's alive, why isn't he here? Because it isn't safe for him to be anywhere predictable, and you coming here tonight was already dangerous enough. A single tear slipped down my cheek, warm against the cold wind. This was our place, the place we first met. Michael wouldn't have picked it unless... He didn't, Daniel said softly. I did. And he hated the idea. The bench beneath me felt suddenly unsteady, as though it might give way. He wanted to come, but there were complications. What complications? I asked, voice trembling. Daniel, please, I need to know the truth. He hesitated, then sat beside me on the bench, leaving a respectful space between us. His voice lowered almost to a whisper. Years ago, Michael got involved with someone he shouldn't have. A business deal. A partnership. It started small, a few contracts, money moving hands, but someone in that circle wasn't who they claimed to be, and when Michael tried to pull out, they turned on him. I felt my chest tighten. Why didn't he tell me? He thought he could fix it on his own, thought he could protect you by keeping you in the dark. My heart ached painfully. He always tried to fix everything himself, but something like this? It got worse, Daniel said quietly. Much worse. A soft wind blew through the willow again, cold and sharp across my skin. I swallowed. Worse how? His expression darkened. 3 weeks ago, they threatened him, threatened you. My breath caught. Me? Daniel nodded. Your name came up. Your routines. Your habits. They knew too much, Lenny. Fear prickled along my spine. So he ran, and the deputy helped him. My hands tightened into fists. The deputy? The one who told me he was dead. The one who brought the flag. The one who... was protecting you, Daniel said firmly. Not lying to you. He gave Michael a way out, a way to disappear without putting you in more danger. I felt dizzy. The world seemed to tilt. Nothing made sense, yet everything did at once. The empty casket, the closed service, the hushed tones, the quick funeral arrangements. It had all been part of the lie. Or the plan. Michael wanted to contact you sooner, Daniel said softly. But the people looking for him, they have reach. Eyes, ears, phones aren't safe. Messages are risky. But he still sent one, I whispered. Daniel nodded. Because he couldn't stay silent any longer. Because he knew you deserved to know something. And because he feared the danger might reach you sooner than he thought. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to breathe through the suffocating fear. Daniel, where is he now? His eyes met mine, and for the first time all evening, he looked like someone telling the truth he wished he didn't have to tell. He's close, Daniel said quietly, but not here. Not yet. He needs time. He needs you to stay quiet, and he needs you to trust him. I swallowed painfully. But he told me not to trust anyone. That was before he knew I'd found you. And Helen, can I trust my sister? He held my gaze and paused a moment too long. A cold chill crept through my bones. Then he said slowly, Not everyone in your life is who they seem anymore. I sat there, stunned, unable to move. My sister, my best friend, my only comfort these past few days. Not safe? Or simply unknown? My voice came out small. What am I supposed to do? Daniel rose to his feet. Go home, he said gently. Act normal. Tell no one you were here. Burn the note, hide the folder, and wait for Michael to contact you. My throat tightened painfully. And if something happens, if someone comes, if they already know? He placed a steady hand on my shoulder. I won't let anything happen to you. I owe my brother that much. I stared at him, trying to read the truth in his eyes. Tomorrow, he added softly, at noon, you'll get a message, and everything will change. He stepped back, fading into the shadows beyond the willow tree. Daniel! I called out, voice trembling. He turned once. What message? I whispered. His expression was unreadable. You'll know. And then he was gone, leaving me alone on the bench, under the trembling willow branches, with the truth hanging in the air like a storm waiting to break. By the time I reached my car again, my hands were trembling so badly that I had to grip the steering wheel with both of them just to steady myself. The park behind me was quiet, almost peaceful, the willow branches swaying softly with the night breeze. It didn't match the way I felt inside, a storm moving through me so fiercely I could barely breathe. I sat there in the driver's seat for a long moment, trying to gather myself. My chest rose and fell too quickly, my breaths thin and uneven. Daniel. Here. Not an illusion, not a grief-induced vision. He had spoken to me, my name, my husband's name, the truth I had been denied. Truth I wasn't sure I wanted. I didn't sleep again after those messages. I couldn't. I just sat there on the edge of my bed, gripping the blanket like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. The house felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls were listening. My own breathing sounded too loud in the quiet. I kept staring at the phone, half expecting another message to appear, half terrified one would. None came. When the first suggestion of dawn began pressing through the curtains, that pale blue light that always made our bedroom feel softer, I stood up, my legs stiff and unsteady. I walked to the kitchen, put the kettle on out of pure habit, and watched the steam rise even though I wasn't sure I could drink anything. My hands were still trembling. Someone knew about the park. Someone had been watching me. Someone knew Michael wasn't dead. And maybe someone wanted to make sure he stayed that way. I made myself sip the tea anyway, even though the warmth in my hands did very little for the cold in my chest. At 7:14 a.m., my phone buzzed again. I flinched so hard the cup nearly slipped from my grip. But it wasn't from the unknown number. It was from Michael. My breath locked in my throat. Don't leave the house alone today. I'm working on a way to reach you. Be patient. There was no punctuation at the end like he had typed it in a hurry. My throat tightened. I typed slowly. Michael, are you safe? Watching. Waiting. My breath shook as the deputies knocked again. One of them called, Mrs. Carter, we need to speak with you about your husband's case. Case. Not accident. Case. Something cold slid down my spine. I steadied my hand on the doorknob, but didn't open it. What is this regarding? I asked through the door, my voice thin. The deputy replied, We have new information about your husband's death. My heart thudded painfully. Behind them, the SUV door cracked open, only an inch, like someone was listening, like someone was waiting. I stared at that SUV, every instinct in my body screaming at me. Don't open the door. Don't trust them. Don't trust anyone. Another knock. "Mrs. Carter?" the deputy said. "Please open the door." I felt the world tilt. Grief, fear, betrayal, suspicion, all crashing together. And in that moment, with my hand trembling on the knob, my phone buzzed again. One new message. From Michael. "Linda, whatever you do, do not open that door." My hand slipped off the doorknob the moment I read Michael's message. I stepped back so quickly, I nearly tripped over the rug. My heart raced in a way I hadn't felt since I was a girl. That instinctive fear that rises before your mind understands what the danger actually is. Another knock echoed through the house. "Mrs. Carter?" This time the deputy's voice sounded sharper. Too sharp. Impatient. I swallowed hard and took another step back. "I'm not well," I said, keeping my voice calm. Please come back another time." A pause. Then, "We have information about your husband's cause of death, ma'am. It's important." My stomach nodded. Cause of death. They weren't saying accident anymore. Something had changed, and whatever it was, they clearly expected me to walk straight into it. Through the narrow slit in the curtain, I watched the black SUV at the end of the driveway. The engine was still running, smoke puffing from the exhaust in small, steady bursts. A figure sat inside, still, like a shadow carved into the seat. The deputy closest to my door turned his head slightly in the SUV's direction, just for a second. And something about that tiny movement made everything inside me go cold. They were connected. Whoever sat in that SUV, they weren't a passerby or a neighbor or someone lost. They were waiting. For me. For what I might say. For what I might know. I forced myself to speak again. "I'm not going to open the door, I'm sorry." The second deputy stepped forward, his tone changing completely. "Mrs. Carter, it's a matter of public safety. We're allowed to enter under certain circumstances." My breath seized. Allowed to enter? My house? Without a warrant? Without reason? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. My hands trembled as I looked down. Another text from Michael. "Linda, don't argue. Don't engage. Just say, 'I need to call my lawyer,' then step away from the door." My heart hammered. Lawyer? We never even discussed lawyers, but something told me he knew exactly what he was saying and why. So I steadied my voice and said through the door, "I'm going to call my lawyer before I speak to anyone. Please come back later." Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then, without warning, the tone outside shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Like a change in temperature. The second deputy muttered something to the first. I couldn't hear the words, but the frustration in their voices was clear. A moment later,